He noticed. Not right away, not in the first few minutes. He didn't stare at his phone, waiting for your name to pop up. He didn't panic the second your messages stopped. No. At first, it felt like space, like air, like freedom, like a silence he wasn't sure he minded. But time changes everything. It distorts comfort into confusion. And silence? Silence starts to speak louder than words ever could. You stopped texting. You stopped checking in. You stopped initiating. And whether he admitted it to himself or not, something inside him shifted. Because as much as men act like they want space, the truth is, they crave emotional security just as deeply as anyone else. They just don't realize it until it's gone. At first, he thought it was nothing. Maybe you got busy. Maybe you were testing him. Maybe you just forgot. But as hours passed, and those hours turned into days, and those days stretched into that uncertain territory where routines break and expectations dissolve, that's when the thoughts began. He starts replaying the last conversation. Was there a tone in your voice he missed? Was there a shift he ignored? He goes back and checks the thread, looks at your last message, analyzes how you said goodbye, wonders if it was colder than usual, more distant, too casual. He reads it twice, then 3 times. Not because he doesn't understand the words, but because he's trying to feel the meaning behind them. That's what your silence does. It forces him inward. And here's what most women don't realize. Men don't fear losing your presence. They fear losing your interest. When a woman stops texting, what echoes in his mind isn't your words. It's the absence of your attention. It's the sudden shift from being seen, prioritized, and responded to becoming a question mark in someone else's day. At first, his ego kicks in. He tells himself he doesn't care, that he's busy, that maybe it's better this way, that he needed the space anyway. But the ego is a loud liar. And the silence you created? It doesn't feed his confidence. It feeds his doubt. And doubt always invites fear. Because when you text a man every day, he learns to expect you. He gets used to you filling the quiet. He begins to take your presence for granted. Not because he's malicious, but because that's how familiarity works. We get used to what's constant. We assume what's consistent will stay. And we only question its value when it's gone. So now, every vibration of his phone feels like a maybe. Every message he receives that isn't from you reminds him of your absence, not your body, your energy, your effort. And that space you left behind? It starts to haunt him. He won't admit it. He'll act like he's fine. He'll post. He'll scroll. He'll laugh with his friends. But underneath it all, a question grows louder with every hour. Why did she stop? That's what truly gets to him. Not the fact that you're gone, but the fact that you chose to stop reaching out, that you no longer need the connection he once thought gave you peace. That's what makes him spiral. Because men, for all their talk of independence and space, are deeply affected by a woman's withdrawal. Not in the moment, but in the weight of everything left unsaid. Your silence becomes a mirror. It forces him to confront the truth of what he offered or didn't, of how deeply he took you for granted, of how much emotional labor you carried without him ever asking why. And that's when the panic starts. Quietly, privately. He checks your social media, sees if you've been online, looks at your stories, tries to catch a glimpse of your life without him. Not because he's curious, but because he's anxious. Because he wants to know if you've replaced his presence with peace, or worse, with someone else. He'll ask himself questions he's never asked before. Did I do something wrong? Did I make her feel unwanted? Was she more important to me than I realized? And these questions? They hurt his pride. Because they're rooted in something no man wants to feel. Regret. Regret for not matching your effort. Regret for being passive when you were present. Regret for choosing ego when you chose connection. And here's where it gets deeper. He doesn't miss your messages. He misses the version of himself that existed when you were still reaching out. He misses being wanted, being pursued, being a priority. He misses the feeling of knowing someone out there was thinking of him, caring for him, choosing him. And when that stops, it's not just you he loses. It's a part of himself that only came alive through your attention. This is the part no one tells you. When you stop texting, you take your emotional energy with you. You pull back the part of yourself that anchored him, that soothed his insecurities, that fed his self-image. And now, he's left in the silence with nothing but his own thoughts. And trust me, that silence is louder than any message you could have sent. Because you used to text to connect, to remind him he mattered, to keep the connection alive even when he pulled away. But now you've remembered that your energy is sacred, that your attention is valuable, that your peace cannot be negotiated. And this is what shakes him. Not the loss of conversation, but the realization that you've chosen your self-worth over his comfort. He'll start to rationalize, tell himself maybe you're trying to get his attention, that you're playing hard to get. But as the silence grows, he begins to realize it's not a strategy. It's a shift. A real one. One that can't be undone with a quick reply. Because this time, you're not holding back to test him. You're holding back because you're done. That's when he starts remembering things. The way you used to light up when he replied. The way you used to over-explain your silence. The way you used to send that one message at night just to check in, even if he hadn't earned it. He remembers all of it, because now he's experiencing the opposite, the absence, the nothingness. And nothing hurts more than being replaced by peace. He'll try to distract himself, to flirt, to post something to make you jealous. Maybe he'll even send a message. Casual, vague, meaningless. Just enough to reopen the door, but not enough to walk through it. Why? Because he's testing you now. He wants to know if he still has access. If your silence was a pause or a goodbye. If your distance is a strategy or a new standard. But you've changed. And that change can't be faked. You're not withholding for attention. You're protecting your energy. You're not waiting for him to chase. You've stopped needing him to. And that shift? That's the one thing he didn't see coming. Because he never thought you'd stop. Never thought you'd break your own pattern. Never imagined you'd actually detach. Because most women never do. They threaten to leave but never walk away. They pull back for a day and then spiral. But not you. Not this time. Because this time, you got tired. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just tired. And when a woman gets tired of her own emotional exhaustion, something powerful happens. She becomes unavailable, not just physically, emotionally, spiritually, energetically. And that's when he realizes he's not the one in control anymore. So what does he think when you stop texting? He thinks he lost something rare, something grounding, something real. He may not say it. He may not show it. But deep down, a man always knows when a woman has walked away from herself to love him, and then finally chose to walk back. And that choice? That quiet, final, undeniable choice. That's what echoes in his mind long after the last text was sent.